Hey everyone, it's Lauren. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a blood cancer Q&A because September is Blood Cancer Awareness Month. So if you want to learn more about blood cancer or just cancer in general, then just keep watching this video. So like I said, September is Blood Cancer Awareness Month, and the three kinds of blood cancer are lymphoma, leukemia, and myeloma. I'm going to be reading off a few different facts about blood cancer. I'm going to be reading off either the Leukemia Lymphoma Society or the American Cancer Society. I'll have all of my resources linked in the description box if you want to do some more reading. Approximately every 3 minutes, a person in the United States will be diagnosed with the blood cancer. An estimated combined total of over 178,000 people in the US are expected to be diagnosed with the blood cancer in 2020. Approximately every 9 minutes, someone in the US will die from a blood cancer. Like I said, I'll leave a link in the description to this article I'm reading. So now that we've gone over a few facts about blood cancer, let's go ahead and get into the actual Q&A. I asked you guys on my Instagram to ask me some questions. I asked for blood cancer questions or just cancer in general because this month is also Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. I'm not going to be making a whole video about that, but I'll be talking about it more on my Instagram, so you should go follow me on there. I technically was a child when I was diagnosed, and I was able to be treated at a pediatric hospital because I was 18, and they are able to treat 18 and under kids and teenagers that get diagnosed with cancer. So I'm very lucky for that. So I'll have more information about that over on my Instagram. But let's go ahead and get into the questions y'all asked me about cancer. So I got a few questions about my symptoms. How did you find out you had blood cancer? Did you experience any symptoms? Yes, I did. Blood cancer symptoms can vary. Some people can have like all of them, some people can only have one of them, and some people just have super random symptoms that don't even aren't even on the list for symptoms of blood cancer. For me personally, since I had a tumor in my chest, I had arm swelling. So when I was in the shower, my arm would get all swollen and basically turn blue, and that was very concerning. I had a lump under my armpit, so a swollen lymph node. I also had a really bad cough for a few months, and that was another concerning symptom. And I had extreme fatigue. I would take so many naps during the day, and I thought it was just because I was tired. I was doing a bunch of stuff, but I wasn't even at school at the time. College hadn't started, and so the naps were kind of excessive. And then I had shortness of breath, and when I would run up and down the stairs, I would get super winded and super out of breath, and my mom would be like, "Girl, are you okay?" And I was like, yeah, I guess I'm just out of shape. I was not. There was a huge tumor in my chest. So I definitely had a lot of those symptoms. Other symptoms you can experience that I personally didn't are night sweats. That is usually a really common symptom is night sweats. Weight loss or loss of appetite. I've heard some people get really bad itching. I didn't experience that, but apparently it's a symptom. Another symptom that I've heard of is people getting fevers, with no explanation. You aren't sick, you just get random fevers for a long period of time. So those are just a few of the many symptoms you can experience. I'm not trying to list all these symptoms to scare anyone or anything. If you're experiencing symptoms and they have lasted for, let's say, longer than 2 weeks and you're still concerned about it, the best advice I can give you is to go to your doctor and get it checked out. Listen to your gut. I had a gut feeling that something was off, so those were some of my symptoms. So the next question I got is actually a really good question. It says, how is it determined that someone has cancer, and when is that person considered cancer-free? So the way it's determined both ways that you have cancer and that you're cancer-free is both through a scan. So you can have all these symptoms, but they can't give you an actual diagnosis until you get either an x-ray, a CT scan, or a PET scan. The way I was diagnosed, not a specific diagnosis, but they were able to tell that there was a mass in my chest and that it was probably cancer, was through a CT scan and an x-ray in the emergency room. And then a few days later, I had my PET scan, which is a full body scan, and you have to get injected with this radioactive glucose, and it absorbs into any cancer cells that are in your body, and that's how they determine the stage your cancer is at the beginning. If it is just localized in your chest, or if it's in other parts of your body, it's spread to other lymph nodes or your bone marrow or your liver, anything like that. And then throughout treatment, I did get a CT scan and an x-ray every 2 to 3 rounds, just to make sure that the chemotherapy was still working and that my mass was continuing to shrink. And then finally, at the end of treatment, you will have an end of treatment PET scan, and this is where they go in and they determine if you're cancer-free and if you need any further treatment like radiation or anything like that. And if your scan looks good and the activity, it's not super lit up wherever your tumor was, then you're considered good, you're considered in remission, and that was the case for me. To sum up your question, each way to determine you have cancer and you're cancer-free is through some type of scan. This next question is another really good question, and it is, what's the difference between non-Hodgkin's and Hodgkin's lymphoma? Both kinds, non-Hodgkin's and Hodgkin's, are just different kinds of lymphoma. So when you initially get your first x-ray, either in the ER or wherever, they can't really tell what kind of lymphoma it is because they haven't gone in and done a biopsy yet. But usually in your first week of being in the hospital, or a few days, they really try to get it done super fast so you can get started with your chemo. So they'll go in with a biopsy, and this is where they go in with a really big needle. They pick up tumor samples and then they send it to the lab where a doctor will look underneath the microscope, and they're able to tell what type of cancer it is, what type of lymphoma it is. Another difference between non-Hodgkin's and Hodgkin's is usually it depends on what type, but just from the people I know, people that have Hodgkin's have had a longer treatment plan than I do, and obviously they have a different chemotherapy regimen than I did. So to sum up your question, the main difference is that they are, one, just different types of lymphoma. They're treated differently and the cure rate is a little different. I got a few different kinds of these questions, but how can our friends and family support us? What kind of long-term support do blood cancer survivors need most? And how do we best help families affected by cancer? So they're each kind of different, so I'm going to answer them all separately. So I'm going to start with how can our friends and family support us? So I think support varies from different cancer patients. I think anyone might want different kinds of support, but for me, it was just physically being there for me, visiting me in the hospital, visiting me at home, texting me and checking up on me every day, or asking me how a scan went or how my labs went that day. Just communicating with me and physically being there with me just helped me so much. I could care less about the materialistic things like the gifts and stuff like that. Those are nice, but knowing someone is physically there for you and is there to talk with you is just the best kind of support ever. The next question, what kind of long-term support do blood cancer survivors need most? I think this question can go for any cancer survivor, not just a blood cancer survivor, but I feel like a lot of times people are so involved and so there in your treatment, and then when you're okay and you're in the clear, they kind of back away a little bit, and it can be kind of like a shaky feeling like, hey, you were there for me so much, why don't we talk as much now? And I think for me, after treatment was even more difficult than during treatment, because during treatment I was on a schedule, I was doing labs twice a week, I was getting my medicine, and when you're in the clear and you're out of treatment, you know, you have this sense of freedom, and it can be kind of scary because that's when the chance for relapse starts coming, and even though lymphoma, the relapse rate goes down like after a year or two, and I'm already in the clear for a year, it's still very nerve-wracking, and the first year was very scary. So yeah, sometimes remission, survivorship can be even more difficult and can bring on even more anxiety than during treatment. The next question that kind of goes along with it is, how do we best help families affected by cancer? I'm pretty sure what you mean by this question is like family members of a cancer patient. So for my experience, my family, we had some nights we had meals brought to us. Gift cards were also nice to like our favorite fast food restaurants, so we could order to the hospital and we didn't have to like bring our own food and stuff. And then carpool, my best friend thankfully goes to the same school as my brother, so she was able to bring him home after school every day when my parents were up at the hospital with me. So I just think reaching out and being like, hey, what can I do for you? Can I bring you a meal tonight? Can I pick up a sibling from school? Like, is there any way I can help? Being a friend to parents, because it's so hard on parents to have a child going through cancer treatment too. Like, it affects the cancer patient, but it also affects the families a lot too. So I think just showing support to parents and siblings is also a great way to help them out. The next question is, did you receive any psychological help, and do you think it is necessary? Yes, I received psychological help. Thankfully, the hospital I went to actually provides psychologists to cancer patients, and so like every time I was in for chemo, my psychologist would come visit me in my room and we would just talk. And even after I was done with treatment, when I would go in for my checkups, she would come in and talk to me and be like, hey, how are you doing? And I would like pour out all my feelings onto her, like, oh, I'm struggling with this week and all that stuff. But I would really encourage it because it's so nice to be able to talk with someone outside of your friends and family, just to get a different perspective. And you know, they're professionals, so they can give you like professional help and advice. So I think it's very important, and I encourage it, but I'm obviously not going to say it is necessary, because obviously every cancer patient feels differently about getting psychological help. But for me, it was very helpful. Yes. And the last question I'm going to answer is, how is your transition from ending chemo to now? I think there are pros and cons to being in remission. Obviously, you know, you kind of get your life back, even though the coronavirus has kind of prevented that from happening. I was getting my life back for about a month, and then the coronavirus hit and we had to all go in quarantine, so I kind of felt like I was isolated again, which sucks. But the transition, there are some exciting parts. Like I said, getting my life back and being able to be at home and not having to worry about packing my stuff up to go to the hospital. Watching my hair grow back and watching me look healthy again is also very exciting, but it also brings on a lot of anxiety. Some days are good and some days are really bad, where I literally feel like I can't do anything because my mind is so just all over the place and worried and anxious about every little thing. But being in remission, yes, is very exciting, but it also brings on a lot of anxiety too. So like I said, I think there's pros and cons, but so far the transition has been fairly smooth. We've had some rough patches, but for the most part it's been great. I'm back in college, back in school, so I've been busy with that. It's really helped keep my mind off everything. And yeah, so transition's been pretty good for after treatment. Those are all the questions I'm gonna answer in this video. Hopefully this helps. It's from a survivor standpoint, blood cancer survivor. Like I said, I'll have resources linked in the description box if you want to learn more about blood cancers. And then I always advocate for cancer on my Instagram. You can follow me on there as well. Thank you guys for watching. If you found this helpful, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, comment down below, and tell me if you're a blood cancer survivor and what is the best advice you've ever received being a blood cancer survivor from like a doctor, a fellow survivor, whatever. And also make sure you subscribe so you never miss another video like this one. Again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye!